Hi everybody, this is Hero with another Dragonflight video. This video, I'd like to do a comparison of the spells and abilities in your baseline kit for Disc Priest in Shadowlands versus what we're looking at for Dragonflight. And the reason I want to do this is I want to show you with some data what kinds of losses and pruning is occurring, what kinds of repackaging is being done for Dragonflight, and how we can make sense of what we have within these talent trees. So here we have in front of you your standard, at the moment, Dragonflight talent tree setup. We have both sides, Priest and Disc Priest. You can see here I've tried to select as many of the active abilities that we currently have in the game. And I'm going to be going back and forth between this and a document that I put together which shows you a comparison of active abilities versus what we get in the new system. And in the center column, you see there all of the baseline abilities that are listed. If you were to pick Disc Priest in Shadowlands, you have about 30 abilities. In Dragonflight, that's pruned down to 14 outside of talents, and then given back to you in the form of talents as we saw in that tree. So things that are missing like Holy Nova, Leap of Faith, Mass Dispel, all show up again in our talent tree. You can see them selected here. Now the point here is to just give you a baseline comparison and to show you that overall not much is changing about the number of spells that are available within either Shadowlands or upcoming in Dragonflight. You get around 40 potential abilities in either one. In the talent system of Dragonflight, you get about 26, 13 of them coming to us in our class tree, 13 coming in the spec tree. You can see them here as I was selecting. But of course, here on the class tree, I've had to use all 31 points to get to and select the available active abilities. And on the priest tree, or the disc spec tree, I have about 2 left over. So just for context, so you can see what we're working with, this is what the main comparison is. On the Shadowlands side, I've included your 7 talents that you have to make a choice between one of 3 options on. 1 legendary, which kind of makes sense because you would probably prefer to get a legendary effect. I know we have 2 legendaries in the game in Shadowlands, but 1 probably accounts for the same weighting as getting an active ability if you wanted it, and then the 2 covenant abilities. That's what I'm using to help calculate. I've left out conduits, even though they show up in different forms in both games, and in Shadowlands you have a little more agency selecting which conduit you'd like to use for your build. In my mind, it's kind of a wash. In Dragonflight, we still get conduits back and you can access them, but we'll talk a little bit about the significance of that. What I want to show is that the limitation is different in each game, and we can talk about what that means. So in Shadowlands, the main limitation is that there's a minimal set of options for adjusting your gameplay through the use of talents, legendaries, conduits, and covenants. Even though there's quite a few things you can do. You can change the Night Fae. You can have a different playstyle with these different abilities, and they often are signature abilities that change how you think about a Mythic Plus or Arena or whatever. But in total, you get about 10 ways to shape or change dramatically your gameplay within Shadowlands that are building on top of your baseline spells. And these all mix and match together. And if you add conduits, it goes up to about 16. But that's a limited pool. Whereas if you look at what's coming up in Dragonflight, it looks like we have almost 26 ways, if you wanted to get just the active abilities, to modify your gameplay. And obviously that goes, 31 total points versus 30 points in the spec tree, so it's like 61 different points all pooled together. That, of course, is still, the disparity of about 15 or 16 active abilities that are lost because we've moved from Shadowlands to Dragonflight, but nevertheless, it offers what seems to be far more agency and choice. However, the main consideration is that in Shadowlands, these talent choices, these legendary choices, are far more available to the player, and you have far more base spells to modify them. Whereas in here, in Dragonflight, we have a fully locked or interconnected tree. And though this seems to be a good thing on the surface, I want to show you why we ought to think of it maybe in 2 ways. One is that it is, yes, giving us access to some cool stuff. Think about, guys, being able to pair mind games with Mindbender, with Wickedness and Twilight Corruption alongside cool new Shadow Covenant stuff. Pretty awesome in the sense that you have a real flavor change that you can control. You can get extra Mind Blast stuff going. You can work with Death. Awesome. But we are being forced into what I think of as uninspired, weak, niche, or unusable selections in order to do these kinds of things. So, for example, think about Holy Nova's position on the tree. Holy Nova is blocking off access to this entire section, Holy Word Life, if you want these other pieces here, and some of these are pretty uninspired in my view anyways. And Holy Nova typically is broken if it's good, meaning this is one of the only buttons you want to press in AoE scenarios because it's too strong, it's giving you both damage and healing, or it's too weak because they can't balance it correctly, especially for Disc Brace where Atonement is concerned. Think about things like Contrition. In its position in unlocking more penance stuff, specifically powerful effects like Spirit Shell and Evangelism, Contrition is currently a talent that is not really used much for the same kind of reason that Holy Nova is a problem, meaning if Contrition is ever really good and casting penance on a friendly target becomes a strong way to do healing through Atonement, then it invalidates a lot of other approaches, specifically spending your penance alongside schisms to do damage, and a few other things. So there's actually a lot of penance support, which doesn't scale with Contrition currently. Contrition is its own spell power coefficient. So if Contrition is strong enough to use in certain circumstances, then all of this penance bonus stuff is kind of more just like a single target heal, and it invalidates a lot of things. That's one of the dangers. But it unlocks Spirit Shell or Evangelism if you want. It gets you down to harsh discipline, which is kind of interesting and potentially powerful. Kind of a problem, right? That you're locked into this selection. What about Swift Penance over here? Looks good. Damage amp, right? Except for it's 2 talent points to gain access to this. It blocks off Divine Star or Halo, which might be gigantic. Also blocks off getting access to Wickedness and Twilight Empowerment, which seem to be also very strong. And, Dark Indulgence is another one that's connected to it, right? 2 points in here for what seems to be a very minor improvement, but Swift Penitence is even worse because it's only buffing the first bolt. So 1/3 of your penance is getting buffed for 20% damage. Not that great, right, on one ability. And the point is it's being couched here like Contrition, like Holy Nova, as a limiter on the kind of access a player has to the whole tree. In fact, there's a lot of other pieces in here that are doing the same kind of thing. And if you get away from the fact that you were, I put all my points into actual abilities and you craft a real build, what you'll find when you're crafting that build is there's a lot of options in here that seem to be sort of have to takes or just, I need this to gain access to the real pieces, but I don't really care about it. And that's a major concern, in my view, if you get to restart the creative design of talents, to start this with things like Contrition being a central hinge on which the rest of it works. So here's a thought experiment. What would happen if you got rid of all of the little lines that connect all of these pieces, the white and yellow lines, and you had the same system, and you just said, okay, to move down one row, you just have to put 1 point into something in that row. And then obviously you have these same limiters here. 8 points required in the top portion to get to the middle, 20 points overall to get to these bottom pieces. But you just took away the lines. What would happen? The whole thing opens up in fascinating new ways. You can suddenly really shape your destiny and get the kinds of synergies you want and avoid the things that you don't for the kind of content you're interested in. And yeah, it makes it potentially a little more cookie cutter. People might come up with more crafted builds, but guess what? People are going to do it anyways. It's just the difference is that they just have to take Contrition and will complain about it. They have to take something mediocre like, Dark Indulgence or Holy Nova or Enlightenment if you didn't want it. You have to take these in order to get access to the stuff you're really looking for. If you remove the lines, it shows the kind of arbitrariness that's going on with this kind of design. And controlling players via weak options doesn't seem to me to be the best way to go forward. Instead, all of these options should be compelling, and the choices should be for the players to decide, wow, these are some really strong effects. I want this effect. What do I have to give up to get it? And instead of having to give up spiritual evangelism, harsh discipline, even fall, all of this stuff because it's connected to contrition, they should really only have to give up a certain number of pieces, but they could rearrange their build however they like to make use of it. And they are not limited structurally by the apparatus itself, saying, no, Holy Nova or Radiance is guiding everything down here. And if you're in PvP and you don't want Radiance, too bad. You have to take it to get through all this stuff. Kind of a problem, right? If Radiance was unlinked here, then you can think about a lot of interesting builds, right? Maybe you take a complete dark side path and you go into Covenant, Shadow Covenant, you on this side you stick with the dark theme or whatever you like, guys. You can come up with it. But Radiance is the thing that is blocking you from getting access to so many of these pieces down here. And it makes either the feeling of gaining Radiance maybe not that great, or its partners here. It makes the feeling of getting down here even worse because you had to plow through things you didn't want. And it makes, I mean, I didn't even talk about the other side, things like Crystalline Reflection, Light's Inspiration, Charitable Soul, this whole row seeming to be kind of not really in keeping with Priest as a general class. Like, who's going to be casting Power Word Shield except for Disc Priest? And does Disc Priest even want that? You know, these kinds of questions. But if this was unlinked, at least somebody can choose to select one of these options and not have to take the others. And specifically not even have to have gone through Twins of the Sun Priestess to get there, right? Which entails also having taken Angel's Mercy, which entails also having taken Mass Dispel. Like, yeah, we want Mass Dispel. Of course you do. But notice what's happened. Mass Dispel is baseline in the game right now. They said, hey, we'll take that out and give it back to you as an option if you want it. But then they lock all this other stuff behind it. So is it really an option? And my point is, Blizzard can do better. We can take out these lines if you want as a thought experiment, and the system is immediately improved by 100%, even with some of these crappy options. You know, let's think about it, guys. Look, we don't have to give them feedback that says your game is horrible. We don't have to tell Blizzard, you did the wrong thing and this is way worse than Shadowlands. We just have to say things like, hey, good first step, but this is way too limiting on the player's experience. Just open it up a bit. Let us go for it and see what happens. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I will see you again next time.